cap of gold, which sits at around $9 trillion. And this is with 12 zeros behind. And now let's have a look for a moment at this special use case and see what's the differences between Bitcoin and the traditional, or as they are also called, fiat currencies. And the big difference is that with the cryptocurrencies, there is no need of central intermediaries like the banks to clear the transactions. So, for example, Jan can send money directly to Pete without going through an intermediary. So to say, in a figurative way, banks are additional blocks in the chain, and sometimes they can fail. And this is not very typical for stable economies, but it can really happen. And some examples can be found in countries like, for example, Argentina or Venezuela or Bulgaria, where political pressure had caused hyperinflation. Second of all, intermediaries and banks charge very high transaction fees. And the impact is greater on the most vulnerable part of the population, and these are the poor people. And there is an estimation that there are about 2 billion people in the world today who depend on remittances. In social terms, this means that at least one family member works in the big city or in another country and sends money back home. And then it is estimated that between 15 and 25% of these amounts are so-called lost on transaction fees. And now just imagine how those families would feel the beneficial impact if these transaction fees were close to zero. And indeed, this is one of the typical advantages blockchain can offer. The friction is minimized and the transaction costs are really close to zero. Third comes the privacy. And in traditional payments, there is revealed quite a lot of information about the actors and their financial history. This is not necessarily the case with cryptocurrencies, where anonymity can be kept behind the hashes. At the next place should be mentioned the security. The money in your pocket can be stolen by anyone. And as the Romans used to say, money doesn't smell. With Bitcoin and with virtual currencies, these issues are solved by cryptographic keys, both private and public. And assuring privacy and security is one of the great potentials of cryptography today. Still, it has also potential for improvement. However, and here come the howevers, cryptocurrencies are not backed up with any tangible assets. And to issue fiat currencies, central banks have a very good collateral in gold, government bonds, and private bonds and other instruments. And those assets constitute currency's value. The assets behind cryptocurrencies, however, are algorithms, CPU, memory, and to be honest, these are not very liquid. Another prerogative in central banks is minting and issuing money, and based on macroeconomic indicators and national fiscal policies. With the cryptocurrencies, the money in circulation is predefined, and this is very important. It's predefined by computational logic. And so it's embedded in the software, and for good or for bad, the governments or the central banks are not able to take any reactive measures to counterbalance the economic cycle. The value of Bitcoin is defined by mere speculation, another big topic, because very often people have asked me, okay, how it's defined its value? Well, the answer is very simple, speculation. And what does the speculation mean in that case? It's about people's expectations. So when people get excited, the prices go up, and when they get depressed, the prices go down. And with this high volatility, we can expect a fluctuation rate of about 15%. Bitcoin is not likely to replace gold or fiat currencies or any other traditional assets of transferring value anytime soon. However, central banks and tax systems are national, while the cryptocurrencies are international. And from here, the question, where do Bitcoin owners pay their taxes? And the answer is simple: nowhere. So there is a huge amount of money in circulation, and it is totally tax evaded. As long as there is an international instrument for tax evasion, it is natural that national legislations are fighting against it. And from there, the lack of regulation. This topic also raises the question about the trust on the market among the different players. And moreover, with the hype around the Bitcoin, we tend to forget about the advantages of the traditional cash, or as Professor Igubon from MIT calls it, the beauty of cash. And the system is built in such a way that it can be very inconvenient for criminals to use it for criminal activities like human trafficking and money laundering. There are some restrictions on the entry and the exit of the system. While for Bitcoin, which is permissionless, the chain is currently unregulated. And the lack of regulation poses a big issue to the practical use of cryptocurrencies. Their massive adoption would require systematic changes. And I would really like to underline this topic. Systematic changes in order to be widely adopted, and now we'll see why. From the particular case of Bitcoin, now we are going to the big topic of blockchain and what it is. So the suite of technologies under the collective name blockchain is defined as a general purpose technology. And general purpose technologies take time to be massively adopted and guarantee economic growth in the long run. General purpose technologies indeed require systematic changes, as we have seen in the example with Bitcoin, to be successful. And this means that they need to be accepted by multiple players on the market in the same time in order to realize all their potential benefits. And this is very important. You can imagine some of the other examples of general purpose technologies are, for example, the steam engine or the electricity or the internet. So you can imagine when electricity was first invented or to say demonstrated, people couldn't imagine how their lives will change with that and how fast this will happen. And this is another big aspect of general purpose technologies. We usually underestimate their impact in the long run, so how our lives work, lifestyle will change, but also tend to overestimate their adoption speed. And here is a very typical case or example of artificial intelligence. So there is a saying that it has been expected artificial intelligence to reach a general level of artificial intelligence similar to human mind in the next 20 years. And this has already been set for the past 60 years. So it's a good example of the overestimation of the adoption speed. Also, general purpose technologies can bring common good to the humanity, but sometimes it's very difficult to capture their value immediately. And usually what investors are looking for is a straightaway positive business case. And as we can also see, the use cases with blockchain might seem a little bit vague or just to require different perspective, different kind of behavior, insensitivized human behavior. So having said all that, what is actually blockchain? And to put it in simple words, without going into much technicalities, every transaction or a piece of digital content, like personal data, like digital assets or IP rights, is stored on blocks, which then can be linked in chains. The records are immutable, meaning that once put on the block, it is nearly impossible to alter their content. And this is embedded in their protocols. There are a few people who are experimenting with many new ones. And there is no central intermediary to govern the system and to gain benefits from it, as we have seen with the example of lack of central banks in the example of Bitcoin. Based on its permissions, it can be open to everyone, which removes the barriers to entry and to exit the system. And imagine it as a self-governed open ecosystem distributed among all participants, where records are permanent and everyone can consult them at any time without additional cost or friction. It sounds like a perfect world, right? Yeah. So now I would like to explore further some of the most typical potential applications of blockchain. And they're related to the processes of settlement and reconciliation. Blockchain allows for digital assets to become unique, and that way they cannot be counterfeit. Currently, it is very easy to make a copy of any digital asset or document. Imagine, for example, an attachment in your mailbox. You can multiply it, you can send it to as many receivers as you wish. With blockchain, this changes because any piece of digital content is timestamped and it has all its attributes in a tamper-proof manner. This leads to its uniqueness, which can be easily verified. And these characteristics are going to revolutionize the digital assets in general, because they will make them unique, but they will also turn them into scarce resources. And this allows also for data integrity to be built ground up. So having all the attributes of digital assets on the block or online will allow us indeed to build many reputation systems or credit scores, and you've all heard about them. Here, I would like also to outline two costs which are related to the blockchain, and they're defined by the professors Catalini and Hans from MIT. These are namely the so-called cost of verification and cost of networking. So what do they stand for? The cost of verification is related to all the interactions that we do online. For example, online shopping or checking your email or checking your bank account. And normally all goes well, but sometimes it doesn't. And when it does not, we need some kind of a controlling mechanism or an auditing to take place. And now think of all the auditing companies, how expensive they are, how lengthy those processes are. And really, I wouldn't like to offend anyone here, but blockchain provides new opportunities in that field. Having the friction minimized and the cost close to zero, this would allow us to make all the auditing activities really regular and cheap. So verifying them on the ledger can be done by any node in the chain, so to say. And this will allow us in practical terms for the following use cases, for example, which are in place today to be optimized. One are the processes of settlement and reconciliation of all the balances, accounts, and transactions. Another one can be, for example, consulting the government's registers, like, for example, the register of the title ownership of property. The other cost, which is the cost of networking, is related to the launching and operating a new type of digital platforms. And here, maybe just to make an interruption. So we have several tendencies. One is the change from the mind to the machine, which is artificial intelligence and machine learning. Another tendency, second, is the transition from the product to the platform. And the third one is the transition from the core to the crowd. So having these tendencies in mind, here we speak about the cost of networking. And the network needs to agree at some regular intervals about the true state of the transactions in a common marketplace. This allows to design essentially new type of marketplaces where the desired behavior can be incentivized. An example, we are giving you an incentive now to participate further in the discussion by giving you a free membership to PMI for the next year. So this is an incentive. It can be also here, I'm imagining in the form of tokens, if you have to pay it and to virtualize the currency. So, the cost of networking allows you to take all the benefits of the network without the cost of being a market power. Market power, like we've seen in the example with the central banks. And another characteristic, the bigger the network, the lower the costs. So another example I can give here is with the mobile networks. Now imagine your first mobile phone when it wasn't yet a smartphone. Maybe it was a Nokia with a torch. And then how expensive in the beginning were the calls and the text messages. But then more and more users were added to the network, and the more users were there, the costs were lower, both for messaging and for calling. So these were essential clarifications, but also all these activities or processes of settlement and reconciliation can be as good as the records are online. And this is very important. We'll see why on the next slide, because costless verification can be close to zero as long as indeed the attributes are virtualized. However, sometimes we need an input from the physical world, and bridging between the physical and the virtual world is known as the last mile problem. You can see it visually here. So the last mile problem is the usual obstacle of realizing all the potential benefits of the blockchain technology. Realizing what is the last mile problem, designing how to solve it can define the success of your platform. And how it can be solved. Usually this is solved by intermediaries, which are called oracles. And they can be very different in nature. One kind of an oracle can be hardware, like the IoT devices. So they can measure some input from the physical world and translate it into data into the virtual world. Another example can be some software or data which can be already found online, like, for example, weather forecasts or the actual course of floating fiat currencies or any other type of data. And not at last place, very reliable oracles can be humans as well. When they need to translate some input from the physical into the digital world, but also when they need to make some judgment, because however the machine learning can be with its current advancements, judgment or, for example, ethical judgment still remains a human activity. So another key point that I would like to make here is that blockchain does not aim to eliminate the intermediaries, as we've already spoken many times, like the central banks, but rather it tries to change their nature and to, like in the case with the oracles, and to turn them rather into translators between the two worlds, so to say, the two parallel worlds, the physical and the virtual one. And we are going to see one more use case of great potential application of blockchain, which are the smart contracts. What are they? Smart contracts are programmable contracts which can be enacted upon certain conditions on the marketplace. In their nature, they are self-executing when certain preconditions are met. And one of the most, even not the most popular example, is the Ethereum blockchain, which is the second most popular, and it represents the opportunity for enacting smart contracts. So simple contracts can be easily automated, but being programmable, as it is the case with every software, they do not have much room for ambiguity and to what it leads. So being a software in their nature, they can also have some bugs. And in cases of contracts, those bugs can lead to financial losses. And yeah, it has happened already. So to overcome such problems or to make smart contracts better, we need two main preconditions. So first of all, we need better cryptography, which will assure the privacy and authorization of who is able to sign and to have a role in those contracts. And the second thing we need is experts from the traditional jobs, so to say, like the lawyers, to speak more to computer scientists so that they both can do smart contracts better. And solving those practical issues will unleash the full potential of smart contracts to take place. And now just imagine a little bit how they can change the very nature of the organizations, the way we know them today. So they might eliminate the borders, the typical borders between the internal and the external organizations as we know them today. And imagine an organization which procures the resources, labor, internal labor, external labor, and other tangible resources based on its necessities. And this will impact indeed the relations between the employers and the employees, between vendors and suppliers. And then the only remaining question, but it's very further in the future, will be about the governance of those organizations. Shall they still be led by humans, or this will become prerogative of the machines, like machine learning? We'll see, maybe, for our children. The next topic I would like to touch, and it has been mentioned many times, also the first days of the conferences, also in the keynote speeches, is about risk management. And the risk management becomes key in every activity we are doing, no matter if it's related to project management or in regards to developing disruptive technologies. So as we have already know and have read in the PMBOK, the risks are divided in two main categories. And these are the so-called known unknowns, or the risks we can foresee, we can plan responses for, and for which we usually also plan contingency reserves, as they are called. And the other group are the unknown unknowns, which are all factors which fall beyond our perception. And these are usually events with much lower probability, but much higher impact. And in the best case, we are planning management reserves for them. And now here I would like to make a relation to the topic of our conference about the black swans. So as Nassim Nicholas Taleb puts it and defines the black swans are events with three dimensions. First, major impact. Second of all, very low probability. And third one, observers interpret them backwards as if they could have been predicted, but weren't, between brackets. And such an event, for example, was what happened in the springtime. And here I refer to the current pandemic and what we all, me, you, all of us went through. So I would say that at least in the beginning of March, I couldn't imagine what was in the weeks to come and months to come. And here, instead of speaking about my personal story during that time, I would like to tell you a story about the history of art. And you see a painting by Gustav Klimt. So Klimt was hired to paint the ceiling of the Great Hall at the University of Vienna. There he produced three paintings, and this is one of them. It's called Medicine and Hygiene, and the name stands for the Greek goddess of medicine and hygiene. So as you can see, on the right side, it represents the river of life with different bodies, human bodies, and different stage of their life. And at the left side, you can see a floating woman in space, and there is, I cannot see if it's really clearly seen here, but a newborn baby in her feet. And the relation between the two, between the woman and the river of life, are those two arms, so the female and the male one. But what is more important and is central in this painting is the position of the Greek goddess of Hygiene. So she has turned her back to humanity. And with that, Klimt represents that medicine is lagging behind on human prevention and cure. He was heavily attacked by the critics for painting this at the University of Vienna. But maybe here is the place to say that a century later, because this painting was released in the beginning of the 20th century. So a century later, we are in a very, very similar position when maybe things could have, but were not predicted. And now, I hope that you're still with us. It's time for a vote. So based on what you've heard so far about disruptive technologies, about risk management, giving the context, I would like to ask you to define which is the black swan and which is the white swan. And on one hand, you have the disruptive technologies and blockchain, and on the other hand, you have the COVID-19 pandemic. So please use the voting poll, the link which is sent by Richard in the chat. And then in a couple of minutes, we'll see the results together. Thank you. And just to give you a tip, it's a multiple answer question. I will show you. So do you see my screen? Richard?
Yes, we see your screen.
Okay, great. So here you can see the survey. Here are the potential answers. So please select at least one of them, can be more than one. One more minute and we are going to the results. By the way, Richard, how many people are in the session this morning? I do not hear you. No.
Sorry, I keep on playing with my mute and unmute. Yes, we have 19 attendees, and we have the five panelists.
All right.
So we have a total of 24 people in the session.
24. And this is out of the registered 42 people. So a bit more than 50% are present at the presentation. And let's see the results now.
Okay, I will mute.
Just a second. So we have 20 responses, and saying that the COVID-19 pandemic is a black swan is the majority of the vote. Saying that it is a white swan, it's much lesser. Then defining blockchain technology as a black swan, again, the same as the COVID-19 pandemic, and blockchain as a white swan, 11. Okay, and we have also small percentage none of the above. Well, let me go back to the slides and to see what might be the answers. And here I would like to express that there is no right or wrong, but still, based on what we have discussed, I will allow to cite Taleb himself, who wrote in a post on Medium from March this year, together with Mark Spritznagel, and he wanted to be, if he is cited, to be cited by the commas. So I'm going to reiterate. Some people claim that the pandemic is a black swan. Hence, something unexpected is not planning for it is excusable. The book they commonly cite is The Black Swan by one of us. Had they read that book, they would have known that such a global pandemic is explicitly presented there as a white swan, something that would eventually take place with great certainty. Such acute pandemic is unavoidable, the result of the structure of the modern world, and its economic consequences would be compounded because of the increased connectivity and over-optimization. And then he further explains that the government of Singapore, who he had advised, had such a plan for crisis situation as early as 2010. So this was 10 years ago. And maybe also many of you have watched already the TED Talk by Bill Gates. I think it was from 2015. So here we can argue what if and when it could have been predicted and why it wasn't. But the results are still the same. From the perspective of now or a couple of years ago, because blockchain is a very, very recent technology, it's also very immature, needed to be mentioned here. We could not predict or being able to predict what it will be its implication on our life or the life of our children or great-grandchildren. Yeah, hopefully they will see. So as a next topic, we are going to deep dive now into the potential applications of blockchain into the project management based on PMBOK version 6. The material I was working on. So some of you have already seen this table. It was presented partially on the PMI fair last year with the dimensions or the mapping between the knowledge areas and the application of artificial intelligence in those dimensions, human or machine-driven, human or machine-assisted knowledge areas. Now, what I did is that I added on top the blockchain dimension and enhanced further the research. So what are the conclusions out of this table? Well, I conclude that the knowledge areas which are related to the project constraints, like schedule, cost, quality, resources, and risk management, can be better performed by machines. while the human ones, like communication, stakeholder resources, and procurement, can achieve lower to no level of automation. And this was an outcome already presented last year. Well, I also conclude that the impacted knowledge areas by the blockchain technology, as you can see here in red, are the project cost, resource, risk, and procurement management. And for three of them, namely the cost, resource, and risk, we have an overlapping with AI. And personally, for me, might be a very interesting topic of further research how the artificial intelligence, the machine learning, and blockchain technologies can be further explored and work together in the relevant processes in those knowledge areas. And on top of where artificial intelligence can be applied, we have also the procurement management. And we are going in a couple of minutes to go more into the details about procurement and the contracts or the application in contracts. Going to the next slide, we go even one level deeper into the processes. And you've all seen these metrics between the knowledge areas and the process groups. So here we really zoom in into the activities. And here I further make mapping of what we have already seen, how it can be applied. So for example, now look at the verticals, what we have already spoken about. The settlement processes can be applied in the execution process group in those knowledge areas, while those related with reconciliation rather in the monitoring and controlling process group. Further, again, looking into the verticals, the last mile problem or the application of oracles can be better fit into the planning processes. So receiving some input mostly from the physical, might be also from the virtual world into our planning processes. Then we can see similar into the monitoring and controlling process group, but here we rather speak about giving the output from the processes in these process groups into what happens into the real life in our projects. So I would say that the link here with the oracles is bidirectional. And now let's have a look for a moment just about to the horizontals and where smart contracts can be applied. And usually this is the case with resource, risk, and procurement management, because we either need to hire to receive some labor, being internal or external, and might be that this difference disappears in the future. We also might need to transfer the risk to third parties, which is related to the contracting of risk management to external parties, and procurement, where we have all the supplier management. And now we'll go into that topic on the next slide, more into the details. But how smart contracts can help us and how they might impact the prices on the market. So due to the reduction in the cost of verification, as we have seen, we can discuss three potential benefits. And the first one is eliminating the additional margins which are imposed by the reselling third parties and intermediaries. The impact will be both on goods and services. And it is essential, especially on the contractors market, where whole reselling chains are formed. And this may even, in the long run, lead to equaling the conditions between the freelancers and the employees. So indeed, there is a potential for reshaping the labor market, and it will certainly push the prices down for the buyer. Second of all, we have a reduction in the conversion and transaction fees. Again, cost of verification. which are quite notable currently in the international transfers and especially in floating currencies. And third, smart contracts might help us avoid the need of lengthy and costly dispute resolution processes, and in some cases also potential lawsuit. So now let's go into the details into the procurement management at the next slide. And you've all seen this graph representing the different kinds of contracts being fixed price with different subtypes and cost reimbursable, where we have cost plus some kind of fee and their subtypes. And this is put in respect to the risk for the buyer and the seller. So here, this graph is further enhanced by the possibility to automate those kind of contracts. And I would say that smart contracts are applicable for contracts where the scope is really well defined, as in the case with the fixed price, or where units of labor or materials are procured, as in the case with time and material. And here I would like also to include all the subtypes of fixed price, for example, fixed price with incentive fee. And this fee can be further tokenized by using blockchain. Then at the second place, state the contracts where automation is more difficult but not impossible. And these are the contracts in the case of cost reimbursable. So the challenge there is to define the last mile problem in the acceptance criteria and to decide how to solve it. So the design of how you pose your problem and the resolution of it. And in the case of framework contracts, for example, with managed service providers, where we have really long horizon of activity and the scope is not well defined, with the current advancement of the technology, we cannot automate those. So also from here, I come to the conclusion, you may see it in the red box, that the lower the risk for the buyer, it is the easier to automate the contract. And for me, at least, this was a valuable conclusion out of the study. Further, my goal was to analyze how the new technologies will disrupt the PM profession and the PM role will change. What will be the necessary skill set of tomorrow? And I think this is also the topic the keynotes spoke about on Monday evening, the so-called power skills. So if you imagine the PMI triangle where you walk your PDUs, it's still a triangle, but I do not expect to remain a triangle in the future. And why? Because many of the technical skills will become obsolete as machines will be able to perform them much faster and with higher accuracy. The automation of the technical skills will also allow human project managers to have more time for leadership and for strategic management. And in general, this will increase the maturity of the profession. So the important skills of tomorrow will be rather related with the EQ, with the emotional intelligence, rather with the IQ. And indeed, emotional intelligence, ethical judgment, and artistic taste will prevail over reasoning and computation. And here we can speak much more about it, but I just wanted to highlight it. Another big aspect of project management and blockchain technologies is the so-called Green Deal. So the application of disruptive technologies in project management and the application of projects to foster the adoption of disruptive technologies, so the relation is bidirectional, should be in line with the principles of the sustainable development. And I would like also to refer to the speech of President von der Leyen in her State of the Union speech like 2 weeks ago, where she posed the transition from fragility to vitality. And the EU Commission proposed to reduce the emissions by at least 55% by 2030. And this is very ambitious target, but it would require a redesign of the way we live, we work, we consume. And this is also one of the main challenges ahead of the blockchain technology, which is currently being criticized for heavy energy consumption. In order to realize its full potential and to become indeed a general purpose technology, blockchain needs to be in line with the principles of the new circular and sharing economy. Sorry for that, but work in the office is also ongoing. So when implementing disruptive technologies, we should never forget about our values and what makes us humans. And here I would like to cite John Stuart Mill, who is one of the fathers of the classical liberalism. And he says that an individual ought to be free to do as he or she wishes unless she harms the others. And in other words, this means that the individual liberty ends where the liberty of the other individual starts. However, today we have a mandatory distance of at least 1.5 meters. So here we have a practical situation and how to deal with from philosophical perspective. How much of our freedoms should we give away in order to secure our safety? And are freedom and safety opposing notions? Well, classical liberalism grew and flourished in the physical world. But today we have indeed the advantage of living into parallel worlds. And these are the virtual and the physical one. So having our virtual identities will allow us and will give us many new opportunities. As long as we are able to solve the last mile problem, we should not be afraid. And this is my message to you. And it's quite optimistic. We shouldn't be afraid because no organic bacteria can fit into the virtual world. So for the first time in history, and I would like to underline that, we are able to live into the dimensions, into parallel worlds. And this, of course, will provide both new opportunities and will require new ideologies, both political, social, economic, etc. And finally, I would like to make a vision, present a vision to you. Sorry. A vision to you, how the world of the lockdown could have looked like if the disruptive technologies were already in place. And here I'll enumerate a number of benefits without going into the details or the analysis. So we would be able to have a common distributed register owned by no single institution, but used as a reference base to check someone's health status. Security of health and personal data can be assured by using the tokens, and aggregated and anonymized data would help us track the infected spots and chains. Thanks to the health passport and aggregated information, people could continue traveling under certain conditions, and this will allow for the free movement and for the safety of the airlines. Further applying machine learning to the aggregated and anonymized health data, we would be able to foresee future epidemics and specify preventive actions used avoiding the current pandemic. Besides the forecasting, the other innate characteristic of machine learning is pattern recognition, and it would allow us to diagnose much faster and big volumes of patients, adapt their treatment, and could lead to times faster vaccine and drug creation. There are already cases where 4D printers created respirators faster and cheaper. National, regional, and parliament voting would be possible without the risk exposure, and the principles of the democracy would be safeguarded without risk of public will alternation. Real estates and other assets transactions would be possible due to the blockchain. Under the lockdown, notaries were working with limited working time, and central register did not operate with citizens. Removing the intermediaries would allow us both private and public entities to continue with transactions, which would prevent the predicted economic catastrophe and would save both public and private finances. We can enumerate much more for the supply chain and the social life, the entertainment. But finally, your smart device over or under the skin would detect through sensors your physical parameters and would send it to the distributed ledger using a token. There your data would be analyzed at aggregated and personal level. The corresponding treatment will be prescribed to you, and this would trigger an order to the pharmacy. A similar order would be triggered to the grocery store based on your needs, like data from your refrigerator, your habits, the number of people in your household. And in both stores, like the pharmacy and the grocery store, your request will be processed by robots and delivered to you by autonomous vehicles. These orders would be paid automatically by your wallet. And during your isolation, you may entertain yourself by choosing and paying only for selected content. And in case of worsen your condition, an alarm would be triggered to the emergency unit. As a precaution, you may leave your last will and distributed ledger, naming your heirs. But in the best case, next week you would travel to the plant.
Hi, Lubomira, I'm quite conscious of time,
Yes.
and we've got a few questions that I'd like to kind of cover. So apologies for interrupting.
This was my last sentence.
Okay. So thank you all for the questions, and we have a few questions from Devanat. So he asked basically, is blockchain, is it considered to be would you consider it a methodology or a process?
It's rather a technology, and based on the capabilities of these technologies and also its limitations, there can be explored different use cases, which will imply indeed processes and methodologies further on.
Okay, and then he had I would say, which is more of a sort of I would say a philosophical question, which was through the slides when you were describing the blockchain process, there seemed to be a background which was in gold. Was that also was there any context there or any of that?
Sorry, but I didn't get the question about the relation to gold.
Yeah, so through the different like the cash register, the artistic representation, it seemed to be that there was a gold background.
Yes.
Was there a significance to that?
Yes, it was intentionally selected. So I chose the pictures intentionally to be golden ones. Okay.
Then we have some questions from Nadarad. So first of all, could you give an example of the conditions in the blockchain contracts?
Well, those conditions which would be applicable in smart contracts should be easily verified. Meaning that they should be able to solve the last mile problem, so to say, to capture the input either from the physical or the virtual world. And then they should be exhaustive, meaning that only under those conditions the contract should be enacted. So again, for smart contracts and for platforms or for anything, you would need a very good design of the problem you need to tackle, and then how the behavior of the different actors in those processes to be incentivized so that they act only in line with your targeted behavior, or they execute the required clauses. Hopefully this answers the question.
Yes, and another also question from Nada Rad, which was I think, or an observation that there was no choice for grey swans.
Good one. Nader, have you studied statistics? Yes.
And then finally from Danny, which I'm not sure if this is an observation or a concern, which is in the as we roll out these new technologies, and there is further risk related to viruses and things that they enter into the digital world. So the security risks, I guess, which is, I suppose, would come in as part of the risk management process.
Yes, and there will be errors for sure. That's why many people are testing many use cases. There are many white papers. Some are good, others not that much. But it's something new, immature. People are playing around, and with the time, the use cases will evolve, the application will evolve, and hopefully we'll see the benefits of it.
Okay, so I would like to thank you, Lubomira, for a very interesting and informative presentation on an area, a technology, a process, even a kind of a change, basically, which will continue to impact us as we move forward.
Thank you for your participation, for waking up that early, and for listening to it. And now I would like also to give the free membership to some of the participants.
Okay, so and I think on the basis of the contribution that this should go to Devana, Jessica.
Congratulations, then. Okay. Thank you very much to all of you for participating. Here you can see my details, and if you haven't added me in the social networks, welcome to do it, and we can continue the discussion offline, so to say. Thank you very much, and I would like to wish you a nice day further and stay with the PMI event. Thanks a lot for PMI to organizing it in these interesting times. Thank you, and bye.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.